Picture a vast desert, sun blazing with relentless intensity. Imagine the heat shimmering off the sand, the air thick and heavy, sand stretching endlessly in every direction, an ocean of dunes meeting the distant horizon, a landscape that seems to whisper tales of ancient times and forgotten civilizations. This is the setting, the very place where the Book of Numbers begins, a pivotal moment in the history of a people and their relationship with the divine. The Israelites, once slaves in Egypt, their lives marked by hardship and oppression, now stand at the foot of Mount Sinai, a place of revelation and covenant. They've come so far, both physically and spiritually. Here, they have received God's laws, a comprehensive guide for life, a blueprint for a just and righteous society. These laws are more than just rules. They are a pathway to a deeper connection with God and with each other. Their time of learning, of receiving instruction and understanding their new identity, is coming to an end. Now, they must move forward, leaving the familiar behind and stepping into the unknown. The time for preparation is over, the time for action has arrived. The journey from Sinai to the Promised Land was initially envisioned to be a relatively short one, a matter of weeks or months, but it became a prolonged and arduous test of faith, resilience and endurance, stretching over decades. The desert would become their classroom, and hardship their teacher. Freed by a series of undeniable miracles, acts of divine intervention that defied the laws of nature, they had witnessed the Red Sea dramatically part, creating a pathway to escape their pursuers. And they had gratefully eaten bread, manna, miraculously provided from heaven, sustaining them in the barren wilderness. Their ultimate mission was clear: to travel to the land God had promised to their ancestors, a place of abundance, flowing with milk and honey, a land of peace and prosperity where they could finally settle and thrive. They were guided by a visible manifestation of God's presence, a pillar of cloud by day, providing shade and direction, and a pillar of fire by night, offering warmth, light, and reassurance in the darkness. With such clear guidance, every step they took was meant to be a step of faith, a tangible expression of their trust in God's plan. They had to learn to trust, implicitly and completely, that the same God who had miraculously freed them from slavery would also faithfully sustain them, providing for their every need along the way, even in the most desolate of circumstances. This journey was far more than just a physical relocation. It was a profound spiritual journey, a process of learning to trust in the face of the unknown, to rely on God's promises even when the path ahead seemed uncertain and fraught with peril. The Israelites' story, recorded in the Book of Numbers, serves as a powerful mirror for us, reflecting our own experiences of leaving behind the familiar comforts of life, facing the uncertainties that lie ahead, and desperately holding on to hope, even when circumstances seem bleak and discouraging. In many ways, we all have our own personal deserts to cross, challenges and trials that test our faith and push us to our limits. And we all have promises to pursue, dreams and aspirations that require courage, perseverance, and unwavering belief. As we carefully follow their ancient journey, tracing their footsteps through the sands of time, we gain insight into their struggles, witnessing their moments of doubt and fear, as well as their inspiring displays of faith and resilience. Their struggles, though ancient, poignantly reflect our own human experiences, the universal challenges of faith, doubt, and perseverance. We, like them, are constantly learning to trust in something greater than ourselves, to keep moving forward even when we can't see the path ahead, and to believe in the power of promises that are not yet visible, to hold on to hope even when surrounded by uncertainty. Therefore, the Book of Numbers is far more than just a dusty record of ancient history. It's a timeless map, offering guidance and wisdom for anyone embarking on their own personal journey of faith, regardless of their background or circumstances. Within their story, we can discover invaluable lessons that are directly applicable to our own lives, providing encouragement and direction as we navigate our own unique paths. Ultimately, the road to any promised land, whether literal or metaphorical, is invariably paved with trust. Trust in ourselves, trust in others, and most importantly, trust in a higher power. Before leaving Sinai, God commanded Moses to count the people. This census wasn't just about numbers. It was about identity and preparation. Organizing former slaves into tribes and families turned a crowd into a nation. Each person mattered, each had a name and a place. The census measured their strength and gave them purpose. Tribes camped around the tabernacle, God's presence at the center, a visual lesson to keep faith at the core. This act fulfilled God's promise to Abraham: his descendants would be countless. The census gave them unity and direction. Like the Israelites, we must take stock of our blessings, strengths, and what centers our lives. Preparation and organization are acts of faith. The Israelites were ready for the journey ahead. Their story reminds us to build our lives around what matters most. The journey began with hope, a beacon in the vast unknown, as the cloud lifted, signaling the start of their exodus. It was a moment filled with anticipation, a collective breath held before embarking on a life-altering adventure. And the tribes marched out, a sea of humanity flowing into the wilderness, each step resonating with the promise of freedom. Families walked together, their belongings carried on their backs, their hearts filled with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. But the desert's harshness quickly replaced excitement, the relentless sun beating down upon them, the sand stinging their faces, and the scarcity of water testing their endurance. The initial enthusiasm began to wane as the reality of their situation set in. With exhaustion, the weight of their journey, both physical and emotional, began to take its toll. Weariness etched itself onto their faces, and their steps grew heavier with each passing day. Complaints spread, murmurs of discontent growing louder with each sunrise. The shared hardship began to fray the bonds of unity that had initially held them together. About the food, the monotonous diet of manna failing to satisfy their hunger or their spirits. They yearned for the flavors and variety they had left behind. The hardships, the constant struggle against the elements, the relentless demands of survival in a barren land. Every step was a challenge, every day a test of their will. The monotony of manna. Day after day, the same bland sustenance, a constant reminder of their deprivation. It became a symbol of their discontent, a focal point for their growing resentment. They longed for Egypt, their memories selectively filtering out the pain and suffering they had endured as slaves, forgetting its pain and remembering only its comforts, the familiar tastes, the established routines, the illusion of security. The past, once a source of oppression, now seemed like a paradise lost. Their focus shifted from the promise ahead, the vision of a land flowing with milk and honey, a future of freedom and prosperity, to the discomfort of the present, the immediate challenges that loomed large in their minds, obscuring the hope that had once guided them. Even Moses' siblings challenged his leadership, questioning his decisions, undermining his authority, and adding to the growing sense of unease. And God had to intervene, a powerful reminder of his presence and his unwavering commitment to their journey. These early complaints revealed a deeper issue, a fundamental struggle within their hearts and minds. They were free from Egypt, physically liberated from their chains, but not from a slave mentality, the ingrained habits of thought and behavior that had been forged in captivity. Quick to grumble, slow to trust, their faith faltering in the face of adversity. They lost sight of their goal, the ultimate destination becoming a distant and unattainable dream. This is a universal struggle, a timeless battle against doubt and discouragement. We start new ventures with enthusiasm, fueled by optimism and a belief in our ability to succeed. But let setbacks discourage us, allowing temporary obstacles to derail our progress and diminish our resolve. We romanticize the past, selectively remembering the good and forgetting the bad. When the present is hard, creating a distorted view of reality that makes our current challenges seem insurmountable. The Israelites' grumbling, their constant complaining and dissatisfaction, is a timeless warning, a cautionary tale about the dangers of negativity and the importance of maintaining a positive perspective. Gratitude is a discipline, a conscious choice to focus on the blessings in our lives, even amidst hardship. The antidote to complaint, a powerful force that can transform our perspective and empower us to overcome adversity, to survive any wilderness, whether literal or metaphorical. We must choose gratitude over grumbling, actively cultivating an attitude of thankfulness that sustains us through difficult times. Their story urges us to keep our eyes on the promise, the ultimate goal that motivates us and gives us hope, not the problems, refusing to let temporary setbacks overshadow the bigger picture and diminish our determination. At Kadesh Barnea, after years of wandering, the Israelites finally stood on the border of the Promised Land. This pivotal moment marked the culmination of their long journey from slavery in Egypt, a journey guided by divine promise and unwavering hope. The land flowing with milk and honey was now within reach, a tangible reward for their faith and perseverance. Before crossing over, Moses, under divine instruction, sent 12 spies to scout Canaan to assess its strengths and weaknesses, its resources and inhabitants. These men were chosen representatives, leaders from each of the 12 tribes, entrusted with a critical mission that would determine the course of their nation's future. They were to bring back a true report of the land, a land as rich as God promised, a land of abundance and prosperity, a testament to his faithfulness. The spies were tasked with observing the terrain, the cities and the people, gathering intelligence that would inform their strategy for conquest. After 40 days, the spies returned with fruit and stories of abundance, a tangible demonstration of the land's fertility. They carried clusters of grapes so large that they had to be borne on a pole between two men, a visual representation of the land's extraordinary yield. But their report also included tales of giants and fortified cities, formidable obstacles that seemed insurmountable. These cities were heavily walled, their defenses strong, and their inhabitants appeared to be powerful and intimidating warriors. 10 spies spread fear, their voices amplified the perceived dangers, painting a picture of inevitable defeat. They focused on the challenges, magnifying the strength of the enemy and minimizing the power of God. "We are like grasshoppers next to them," they declared, instilling a sense of insignificance and helplessness in the hearts of the people. This comparison highlighted their perceived weakness and vulnerability in the face of the Canaanites' might. Only Joshua and Caleb urged faith. They stood firm against the tide of fear, reminding the people of God's promises and his power to deliver them. They refused to be swayed by the negative report, choosing instead to trust in God's unwavering faithfulness. "If God is with us, we can take the land," they proclaimed, their voices filled with conviction and unwavering belief. They emphasized that their success depended not on their own strength, but on God's presence and his divine assistance. But fear drowned out faith, its insidious whispers poisoning the hearts and minds of the Israelites. The people succumbed to doubt and anxiety, allowing their fears to overshadow the promises of God. The people wept and believed the worst, their hopes dashed and their dreams shattered by the negative report. They mourned the loss of a land they had not yet possessed, succumbing to despair and hopelessness. This was a turning point, a critical juncture in their journey, a moment that would determine their destiny. Their response to this challenge would shape their future and define their relationship with God. Not from lack of evidence, but lack of trust. It wasn't that they didn't see the abundance, but they didn't believe God could overcome the obstacles. Their crisis stemmed from a failure to fully trust in God's power and his unwavering commitment to his promises. The majority saw obstacles, insurmountable barriers that stood between them and their promised inheritance. They focused on the size of the walls and the strength of the enemy, losing sight of the God who had parted the Red Sea and provided for them in the wilderness. Only a few saw opportunity, a chance to demonstrate God's power and claim the land he had promised them. Joshua and Caleb saw beyond the obstacles, recognizing that God was greater than any challenge they might face. Their choice to trust fear over God's promise changed everything, leading to years of wandering in the wilderness and the postponement of their entry into the Promised Land. This decision had profound consequences, impacting not only their generation but also the generations to come. The lesson is clear, a timeless reminder of the importance of faith in the face of adversity. This story serves as a cautionary tale, urging us to examine our own hearts and to choose trust over fear in every situation. Faith falters when we focus on giants instead of God, when we allow our fears to overshadow our belief in his power and his promises. When we fixate on the challenges before us, we lose sight of the one who is able to overcome them. The Israelites' crisis of faith is a warning, a stark reminder of the dangers of succumbing to fear and doubt. Their experience teaches us that faith is not merely a passive belief, but an active choice to trust in God even when circumstances seem impossible. About letting fear dictate our future, about allowing anxiety to control our decisions and determine our destiny. When we allow fear to guide us, we limit ourselves and miss out on the blessings God has in store for us. Sometimes, the greatest challenge is believing in the promise, holding on to hope even when the fulfillment seems distant and uncertain. It requires a steadfast faith, a refusal to give up on what God has spoken, even when the odds are stacked against us, when the obstacles seem overwhelming, when the challenges appear insurmountable, and when the path ahead is shrouded in uncertainty. It is in these moments that our faith is truly tested, and our commitment to God is either strengthened or weakened. Their story asks a question that resonates through the ages, challenging us to examine our own hearts and motivations. It prompts us to consider what we truly believe and what we are willing to trust. Will we trust the evidence of fear, the seemingly insurmountable obstacles that loom before us, or the assurance of faith, the unwavering promise of a God who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think? The answer shapes the journey ahead, determining whether we will experience the fullness of God's promises or remain trapped in a cycle of fear and doubt. Our choice will dictate the direction of our lives and the legacy we leave behind. The Israelites chose fear, a decision that led to devastating consequences and prolonged their journey in the wilderness. Their lack of trust robbed them of the opportunity to experience the blessings God had prepared for them, and paid a heavy price, enduring years of hardship and wandering in the desert as a result of their unbelief. Their story serves as a solemn reminder that our choices have consequences, and that fear can lead us down a path of regret and disappointment. Trust, not fear, is the key to entering any promised land, to unlocking the blessings and opportunities that God has in store for us. It is through faith that we overcome obstacles, conquer our fears, and step into the fullness of our destiny. The people's fear turned to rebellion. They wanted to return to Egypt. God's disappointment was immense after all the miracles. Their faith collapsed at the final test. The consequence: that generation would wander 40 years in the desert, never entering the promised land. Only Joshua and Caleb, the faithful spies, would be allowed in. For every day the spies scouted, a year of wandering was decreed. A new generation would inherit the promise. The journey that should have taken weeks became a lifetime. Fear cost them their future. Their story is a sobering lesson. Fear can keep us wandering, missing opportunities. The real giants were not in the land but in their hearts. The cost of not moving forward is often greater than the risk of taking the next step. The Israelites' wandering warns us not to let fear dictate our destiny. Years passed and a new generation grew up in the wilderness. Yet old patterns resurfaced: complaints about water, hardship, and leadership. God told Moses to speak to a rock for water, but Moses, frustrated, struck it instead. Water flowed, but Moses' disobedience had consequences. God told Moses and Aaron they would not enter the promised land. Even great leaders can falter under pressure. Moses' story is a reminder how we act matters as much as what we do. Leadership is a heavy burden, and even the faithful can stumble. Obedience, not just results, is what honors God. The lesson: trust and humility are essential, even for the strongest among us. As the journey continued, the people complained again. This time, venomous snakes struck the camp. Many died, and the people repented, begging Moses to pray for them. God's solution was unusual. Moses made a bronze serpent and lifted it on a pole. Anyone bitten who looked at the bronze serpent was healed. Healing required an act of faith, looking up, trusting God's provision. The bronze serpent became a powerful symbol. Salvation can come from unexpected places. Centuries later, Jesus would reference this story, pointing to his own mission. Sometimes healing means facing our pain and looking to God for rescue. The lesson: faith and humility open the door to hope. The Israelites learned that even in judgment, God provided a way to be healed. Their story points to a greater healing for all who look up in faith. In the wilderness, hope was found by looking up. Nearing the end of their journey, Israel's presence alarmed neighboring kingdoms. King Balak of Moab hired Balaam, a prophet, to curse Israel. God warned Balaam not to go, but Balaam's greed led him to try anyway. On the road, Balaam's donkey saw an angel blocking the way and refused to move. After Balaam beat the donkey, God opened its mouth. The donkey spoke, revealing the angel's warning. Humbled, Balaam continued, but could only bless Israel, not curse them. Every attempt to curse became a blessing. God's purpose could not be stopped by human schemes. Even a talking donkey became a messenger of God's will. The story is both humorous and profound. God can use anyone or anything to protect his people. Blessing prevails where God's promise stands. The book of Numbers ends with a new generation on the edge of the promised land. Shaped by hardship, they learned obedience and trust. The journey was long but not wasted. It was training for faith. The real giants were fear and doubt, not enemies in the land. Their story is a warning and encouragement. Trust God even when the path is hard. God's faithfulness never failed even when the people did. The desert taught them dependence, patience, and hope. Our own journeys have detours and setbacks, but trust leads us forward. The lesson of the desert: trust God one day at a time. With faith we too can enter the promises that await us.